All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I'm following up my interview with Mauricio here. Our first interview, if you've seen it, he was a prospective student for chiropractic college. He's from the East Coast, like state of New York, in that area, but now he's in New Zealand. So he's halfway around the world. He's doing his thing over there. He just finished his first semester and yeah, he's swinging and banging, and he's cranking it out over there. Mauricio, tell us a little bit about your experience as a chiropractic student now, and like, was it what you thought it would be? How was it living over in New Zealand?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, man, for having me on here again. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and chat and talk all things chiropractic and experiences that we have during school. Um, yeah, I'm from Massachusetts, so close, not to New York, but around that area. Yeah. And I remember I first spoke to you. I was on a road trip down south to visit family,
Mm.
and during that time, I was obviously thinking about all the options that I had regarding school and what I thought chiropractic school would be like. And then now having gone through at least one semester, because here at the New Zealand College, they go through a semester system. So we just have 2 semesters per year. Um, it was brutal. It was
Mm.
something
Mm.
that I didn't expect. I didn't expect the amount of volume and content thrown at you. And it was really hard to adjust. And on top of that, you have the whole aspect of moving to a new country, very far away, with a different culture, different pace of life, different people, different environment, just a different way of doing things. And you miss family, you miss your friends, your kind of your environment, what you were used to living with. And to add to it, you have this whole program with you having to, pass your classes, study hard, and kind of grasp everything that you're being taught. So what I can say after at least one semester is it's nothing of what I thought it was going to be.
Mm.
And it was harder than I thought it was going to be. It was more stressful than I thought it was going to be. Of course, there were great moments, right? You get to know so many people from many parts of the world. You get to know people that are from the US too. We have a total of 3 US students in my class. Um, and it's a very cool environment. It's a small school. Um, it's, it's, I wouldn't say everyone because it's not that small where you just, know everyone, but like the faculty, the staff are pretty close. Um, so it was quite an ordeal to just kind of adjust to everything. But looking back, I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to next semester, which starts next week. But yeah, I would say it was. I underestimated what it was going to be like, but now, obviously, having gone through it, um, I know how to do things or better prepare for things. I would say
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, probably as a fair warning to anybody that might be looking into chiropractic school. Um, Now you've heard it from the two students that when you first get in there, it is a load. It is a lot, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of like shoved down your throat. You have to take it, understand it, and pass the
Yeah.
test. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
the thing is, you have all these heavy science courses at the beginning, right?
Mhm.
And there were times where I was like, I can't believe the volume because let alone for one class, you have like slides that are like 70, 80 page slide long presentations that you have to
Mhm.
review. On
Yeah.
top of that, like textbook. On top of that, like if you want to listen to the lecture because you missed a couple things. Um, and then that's just one class, right? Then you have the other rest of like 5, 6 classes that you have to do that are also all sciences.
Yeah.
it's incredible, but it's part of it. You just have to get through it, right? One thing I
Yeah.
asked about the upperclassmen, I was like, they just said you just have to go through it and get through it.
I, I think a lot of people, when they think about going to chiropractic colleges, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna learn how to like adjust right away." Like that's
Mm.
all, right? And it's like you really have to go through like a lot of basic foundational sciences
Yes.
to kind of build up to understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's definitely the biggest for me. That was like one of the biggest curves starting out. I was like, oh my goodness, this is
Yes.
histology. What? When am I going to use this? So it's like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, it was a big wake up call. But in the end, you you have more to I would assume in the future you have more to work with. You don't necessarily have to learn and remember all the, you know, where all these steps of chronic inflammation and where it comes from, or like certain type of cancerous cells that we just have to learn about because they're in the body or they can be in the body. And sometimes they can influence in our decision to, help the person or not. Or not. I don't know. It's, I guess, foundational knowledge that we need to just to be better uh,
Yeah.
practitioners, be better people. Yeah.
I mean, there's
So
also these things called board exams where we have to learn these sciences to
yeah,
kind of show our proficiency. Like, hey, chiropractors are doctors of chiropractor because we know these sciences. It's kind of like the bullet you have to bite if, especially it's harder if you're definitely not interested in those sciences. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
just gotta pass the class.
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
So tell us about besides the educational experience so far, how's student life? Have you like explored any groups that are in the school, any clubs, or maybe even outside of school? Have you got a chance to go around New Zealand? What's it like over there?
Yeah. So the school, even though it's small, the class sizes are not small. I would say because our we have certain classes that are divided into two groups, but for the most part, our entire class is in one schedule, right?
Mm.
So our entire class has like one class at let's say anatomy at 8 o'clock in the morning. Our entire class goes to that class, right? Or that lecture.
Mhm.
So it's around 70, 75 people. And it's not like huge lecture halls here that you would probably see at other schools in the world, especially in the US. But so you don't get that like, yes, you do get that one-to-one contact with the professor, but it's not like classes of like 20, 30 people, right?
Mm.
So that can be something people can look into or consider when they're looking into schools. In terms of my like student experience, there are a number of clubs that you can join. Again, it took a bit of a while to get used to the schedule. So a lot of times I find myself just exhausted by just the mere workload of class, and I didn't have time to go into any clubs, right? Um, but of course, then you have clubs that are just reserved for third and fourth years. I guess you can go observe, but you can't really partake in. But you have clubs anywhere from like nutrition based clubs to age related clubs to philosophy clubs, certain technique clubs. Like I think it's called the World Congress of Chiropractic Club. Um, so you do have clubs to get involved with, and I think there's a particularity that because we're a small school, you can get more out of clubs. I feel because it's an even smaller group. Um,
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed here in almost immediately is the younger age group that attends the school. So I'm 30 years old, and I'm much older than
30 Club, let's go.
much older than my peers. And it was one of the things that I noticed that I was like, this seems a bit different because you can't relate to someone that is 22 years old, right? Or 21 years old. Because of the setup here and how different it is to meet certain prerequisites to get into chiropractic college, you're basically allowed in at a younger age because you can complete those prerequisites quicker, right?
Mm.
In comparison to the US, where you need at least 3 years or 90 credits to go into school or be considered, here you just need 24 credits. So it's just 1 year of school.
Mm.
They just have to be in the sciences. You don't need like the rest of the credits that are just general ed credits that you need to apply to the Chiro school in the US. So that automatically makes it a younger crowd, right? The average age group for Chiro students in the US is around 28. I would say here the average goes down to maybe 23.
Wow.
So it's younger. It's a younger crowd. So that's one of the things I noticed. So normally you just gravitate towards older students because you can relate more. You have more to talk about. Yeah. And just so happens that the international students here, which are about half the class, are generally older. So you're
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, it's been good. You know, there's a lot of events that the student body or student government puts on, you know, especially like debates or like just like conferences or whatnot. And yeah, of course, during the break, there's less going on and start to pick up again once the semester starts. And in terms of New Zealand as a country, it's a beautiful place. I've been able to go to, there's a place called the Bay of Plenty, which is kind of like, I guess, a different state that's on the east coast of the North Island. It's a place that I was in back in 2011 when I first got here to New Zealand on a trip. So it was pretty cool to be back there. And I have a few relatives that are living there. And my brother just so happened to come visit too. So that was cool to catch up with stuff. Yeah, so I still have an entire country to explore, especially the South Island where they say it's really nice. And now it's winter time, but honestly, compared to New England winters, this is pretty much a spring. So there's no snow, of course. At most, you get rainy days, like a lot of rainy days, but it's not really like cold where you have to really bundle up. At least not here in Auckland. The more south you go, of course, it does get snow. It does get colder. Yeah.
What would you say the largest percentages of the student population, or the international student population? So it's probably not as much for the U.S. though, but where would the large amount of international students come in from New Zealand?
Yeah, I would say about 85%, 90% are from Canada.
Canada. Wow.
Yeah, Canada. The school does a lot of work with like and trips to Canada. They go all across the country, and they don't really do that in the U.S. Obviously, because the U.S. has Chiro schools, Canada only has one or two if you count the one in Quebec. But they do a lot of work and travel to Canada to kind of like get people from there to the college. So around, yeah, I would say up to 90% of the international student body is from Canada. The last 2 years were different because of COVID. They didn't allow international students. So those 2 years have majority domestic students, but they're going back to 50-50, which turns out to be like 35 to 40 international, 35 to 40 domestic. And then you have, yeah, this class, we have 3 from the US. I think we are as of now, the only class that has US students because of the pandemic and how that made it work. You have, yeah, students from Canada. You have students from Malaysia, from students from like Samoa. There's a student from Samoa. There's a student from South Korea, um, from Philippines, from Thailand. Um, yeah, so it's more geared towards like this part of the world. Um, I haven't. There aren't any European students in this class. At least there are in other years.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of the demographic on the international students, at least. And from the US, we have from Colorado, Arizona, and Massachusetts. So those are the
Oh,
three
nice.
states.
I
Yeah.
might have to connect with that person from Arizona.
Oh yeah, she's great. Her name is Laura Miller. She's very well versed in the chiropractic world, um, and she's a great person to talk to if you ever reach out to her. I'm sure she'd be
Okay.
also to connect with you.
Yeah, sweet. Now it's kind of early in your chiropractic journey as far as a student, but have you kind of picked up or carried any influences as to what direction you feel like you want to go in the realm of chiropractic?
Yeah. So yes, it is early in my, I guess, educational journey. However, I do get, exposed to a lot of or everything chiropractic because of obviously that's something that I have a passion for. So I always talk to people that um, are involved in with what I'm interested in. My plan is to go back to Europe where I used to live and practice there. Um, it One of the passions that I have with chiropractic is in education, and not so much like institutional education, but rather more of a cultural engagement because there are places in the world that chiropractic is not an option, right?
Mhm.
And independent of it being recognized or not by the state, right, by the government in any said country, you still have the barrier of it being culturally accepted, right? Um, so I think there's a massive amount of work to do. Um, Obviously, continuing the legacy that many people have already started throughout the last few decades, and they've done a massive amount of work to incorporate chiropractic in the conversation of health. Um, there's obviously still a lot of work, right? And there's a purpose that we all have to continue communicating chiropractic, to continue offering chiropractic, and just educating people that this is another way for you to, uh, you know, look at health, right, and your well-being, and to approach health, and to consider chiropractic as something that you can do and incorporate into your life, right?
Mhm.
That's not an option in a lot of cultures, especially like in the Hispanic culture where um, you don't have that much exposure in Latin America and North America. You do,
Mhm.
but countries like Uruguay, where my parents are from, um, there isn't an association, or there's not much with chiropractic. And if you ask people, right, I've asked numerous amounts of friends or people that I know or family that are there, they don't know what chiropractic is.
Mhm.
At the very most, you get people that work with bones and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that's a very, of course, antiquated way of looking at it. So what I would love to do is to be involved in sort of this um, being like a catalyst in the chiropractic conversation regarding culture and making sure people are aware that this is something that they can consider for their health, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And kind of being distinct in mentioning that chiropractic is just different, right? It's just something else you can consider, right? And there's no need to like bash any other profession because they all have their place, right?
Right.
They all have their place. Like if I break my leg, I'm going to go to the surgeon because I need to get that fixed, right? Or if I'm in a life-threatening position, I need to go to the ER or stuff like that.
Mhm.
Or if I need help with muscle my like muscle injuries or stretches, there's everyone has like a place, and There's no need to get into all that of, us against them type thing. So chiropractic can offer something completely different, right? And I think that is untapped, right? It's something that I think people would benefit extremely from. I've benefited from chiropractic care, and that's a passion of mine, something that I would love to do. And in particularly in Spain, because it's not yet regulated by the state or by the government. There's a lot to be done, right? A lot has been done, and there's a lot more to do. And that's kind of the general message I get when I speak to chiropractors in Spain is please come over, please come here. We need you. We need chiropractors. We need chiropractors, because there are entire cities that are in the millions of people without a single chiropractor. And that's almost unheard of in other parts of the world, right? So, and even in big cities like Barcelona or Madrid, you don't have hundreds of chiropractors. You have maybe 100, maybe 120. So yeah, it's really exciting, and it's something that I'm passionate about. So that's kind of the plan. And in terms of like specific, I still don't know because I'm still unaware of a lot with how like specific techniques or you know that whole conversation is one that I'll still have to get involved with and have, of course. But for now, at least the bigger picture is to be a part of a cultural, I guess, awakening into chiropractic. Yeah, that's a passion of mine.
Yeah, I actually have a buddy of mine. He's a quarter above me. His name is Ford, and he's from sorry, he's from Israel. And
Hmm.
he eventually wants to make his way back over there. And he was telling me that there's chiropractic is rare over there, and he has like a similar goal to bring
Yeah,
it over and kind of put it on the table and just introduce it to a lot more people as a way of treating things. And I believe it's one of those things where there's definitely a lot of layers to it. There's some countries that it's completely illegal. We don't believe in that. Some
yeah,
countries where what's a chiropractor versus an osteopath, like people don't know the difference. Some people might practice manipulation but not call themselves a chiropractor.
yeah,
Cultural differences. I believe there's a lot of layers, but I do believe that there's definitely room on the table for everybody, and
yeah,
just to show like what the worth is and getting treatment. Like I guess one of my like dream plans or is to it's kind of along the same vein where obviously bone setting and like things like that are similar or influences to chiropractic have been around for much longer periods of time. And you go to different parts of the world, there's these healers, these bone setters, these doctors that aren't doctors but they could fix people. And I
yeah,
kind of want to like kind of dive into that and explore like, okay, like what are similarities, what are different ripples that we could come across and find out maybe there's no science to back up what you're doing, but like you're doing something good, you're helping the body.
happening.
And
Yeah,
yeah, so it's definitely interesting. There's definitely a still yet a lot to learn, but we've come such a long way as far as establishing chiropractic, putting it out there, being part of sporting events, being in different countries. So
yeah,
yeah, as a testament, being in New Zealand and just being in that part of the world, and we're here in the U.S. as well. I believe like even just the U.S. population, it's only a small percentage that knows about chiropractic. It's only like
true.
20 to
Yeah,
30%. So there's plenty of people to educate and
yeah. Imagine,
let them know.
that have if you have an entire nation of 350, I think, million people, and even with the US where chiropractic is probably the most popular, right? You'll find more chiropractors in the US or at least per like capita. And um, even then, it's not like it's nowhere near how many people go to medical doctors for certain ailments or for certain issues that they have with their body, right? There's still an incredible amount of work to be done in the US in Canada, in places that chiropractic has been established at least for, 80, 90, 100 years, right?
Mhm.
So imagine in other places where it's not, right? So in general, at a global level, there's so much to be done. And I think especially nowadays with so much information coming out with health, with how, and with disease too, right? Um, I would partake in the idea that we could be a part of a shift that people have regarding their health, right? And a lot of the times, I was reading or watching a few podcasts about starting off from, yes, we learn about disease. Yes, we learn about the beginning of a disease and how that affects a person. Um, but perhaps we can benefit more if we focus on health, if we start from health and we work with that, right? Disease, you can study the hell out of disease and then still not find why this person got sick. Let's turn it around and be like, let's study how to be healthy instead, right? Without neglecting the realities of disease, right? And how horrible they are. Um, Especially like things like cancer and all that. But diseases that can probably be linked to your lifestyle, right? Let's figure out how to be healthy and go from there. And of course, with that, you attach a lot of different interests that are making a lot of money with disease. And I guess you have to consider that. Even then, you can kind of still focus on your own thing. You don't have to battle against, you know, big pharma or the big government or whatever. You can still focus on you and just stay in your world and help so many people and change the lives of so many people. I think it's a great thing. This shift that I think we will be a part of. And if not us, we'll leave the legacy for future generations to be a part of. Because none of that will happen unless we do what we need to do, independent of seeing the fruit of it or not, right? People that were born 80, 90 years ago, 50 years ago that have done chiropractic their whole lives, and maybe they didn't see what they wanted to see, but we do, right?
Mhm.
And that's the importance of, and none of what we see today would have happened without them, right? So attached to it, the things that regarding legacy of doing things that will bear fruit in the future, whether we see it or not, right? Have that purpose in what we do. Um, so I think this shift that's happening or could happen, chiropractic has a big role um, to play in. And as chiropractors, we almost have a responsibility to be those pioneers in health for people, and that option, that alternative for people to look into, right? Um, so yeah, like you were saying, figuring out what they're doing, right? Um, Come together and just work to just for the betterment of people, right? That's always a good thing. It's always a positive, right?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you for coming on and taking the time. We have like a day and a half difference between us, but we made it work. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate, man, and I'm so excited for your passion, for your journey, for what you want to do with the profession, with the just with yourself and with the world in general. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just looking forward. Definitely more to come. But thanks again for coming on with me.
Yeah, and thank you for the space to be on your platform. I really appreciate it. I know it's a lot of work to be that you're doing in the midst of school and everything. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate it. And I know it's just one of many conversations to come.
For sure. All right, man. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, talk to you later, man.